shifting strategy. Attorneys representing accused healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione say they will pursue a psychiatric defense in his state murder trial. What they plan to argue and the impact it could have on any potential sentencing. Breaking news, no change. The newly minted chairman of the Federal Reserve and his board decide to hold interest rates steady. What he just said about that decision that could put him on a collision course with President Trump. Type therapy. A growing number of psychologists say their patients are turning to artificial intelligence to help them manage their mental health. What experts say patients need to consider. And mask market. Mexico's iconic lucha libre masks are one of the hottest items at this year's FIFA World Cup. How the host nation, Mexico, is fighting to keep up with demand. We've got a lot of World Cup action for you coming, but we begin this hour with a new defense strategy for Luigi Mangione. He's the man accused of fatally shooting healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a New York City sidewalk back in December 2024. In a pretrial hearing today, the judge said Mangione's lawyers will use a psychiatric defense in his state murder trial. They will attempt to show that he was suffering from, quote, extreme emotional disturbance, unquote. A days-long manhunt for Thompson's killer, you might remember, ended with Mangione's arrest at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. He has pleaded not guilty to state and federal charges. Joining us now, NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk, also with us, NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris. Steph, I'll start with you. Why would the defense change course like this?
Right. It seems strange, right? Because they're effectively saying, yeah, our client did kill Brian Thompson. So what's going on here? They're saying he killed Brian Thompson, but that he shouldn't be accused of second-degree murder because of the emotional distress he was feeling at the time, that instead what he deserves is a lesser charge. And what does this fundamentally mean? It means if they can launch that defense and the jury sides with them, then their client could get, instead of 25 years in life to life for murder, it would be a manslaughter charge that is 5 years to 25 years, which means he could potentially, on the state charges, get out of prison.
Yeah, so, but I guess, Misty, I'm confused as to why he wouldn't just then plead guilty. I guess this is a way, as Steph said, to get less time overall.
Yeah, so he's charged with second-degree murder. That's an intentional murder. That's what carries a potential life sentence. But here, he's still pleading not guilty to that charge. He's saying that they're going to assert a defense that mitigates his culpability in the case and ultimately results in a manslaughter charge, which, to Stephanie's point, carries a significantly lesser sentence.
Misty, how do they get over that bar? Like, how do they prove that this is what happened?
And what's interesting is that usually the defense doesn't have to say a thing, but once they raise this defense, they do have to show that he acted under extreme emotional disturbance, that something happened that caused him to lose control, and then they have to tell the jury why. They have to assert a reasonable explanation for why that happened. So they actually are taking on a burden that they will have to prove to the jury in order to be successful.
Yeah, and Steph, it doesn't feel like we've even heard that story to date, right?
We have not
heard Luigi Mangione's story of
and that's fascinating. We also haven't heard much about the buildup to the murder. And so that then becomes the real focus of this trial, instead of forensics and shell casings and that sort of thing, except for what was written on the shell casings. But, you know, it becomes this, what was his state of mind? And so there are pieces of evidence that suddenly become much more important. Instead of the silencer and the gun, it's that little red notebook we spent a lot of time talking about, the writings of Luigi Mangione. That you could expect both the prosecution and defense to spend a lot of time on those things.
And just timeline-wise, Steph, what happens next?
Well, the judge was very specific today because the prosecution said, wait, are they trying to slow this whole thing down? And the judge said, no, 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 no. This trial is happening on September 8th. That's the state trial. And then the federal trial is scheduled for early next year.
All right, Stephanie Gosk, Misty Marris, thanks to you both.